They laughed at her for years, called her names, mocked her body, and said no man would ever love her. But the day a millionaire stopped his car, took her hand, and said, "I will," the entire town went silent. In 2022, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Amara Johnson worked at a county nursing home. She was 30 years old and spent most of her days helping elderly people and war veterans. Her work included feeding residents, cleaning rooms, changing bedding, and keeping track of their medical needs. Every morning she checked the list of patients, wrote down their conditions, and prepared the medicines according to the nurse's instructions. She often helped people eat or get up from bed, sometimes staying longer than required to make sure everyone was comfortable. Amara was known among the residents as a kind and patient worker. She brought soup, adjusted pillows, and helped them move without pain. When someone could not sleep, she stayed a little longer and read to them or listened to their stories. Some veterans liked to talk about their service years, and she listened quietly, showing real interest. She never hurried them, even when her shift was ending. For her, this job was not just work but something meaningful. Her life outside the nursing home was simple. She lived alone in a small rented apartment about 10 minutes away. Most evenings she prepared food for the next day, reviewed her notes about the residents, and sometimes called the families who had stopped visiting their relatives. She believed that people deserved care and attention no matter their age or health. Despite her dedication, Amara faced disrespect almost daily. Some coworkers joked about her weight and whispered when she passed by. At the grocery store, a cashier once added extra bags and made a remark about the weight of her shopping. In the staff room, two orderlies made bets about how far she could walk without stopping to rest. Amara tried not to react. She felt embarrassed, but she kept her focus on the residents who truly needed her. Among them, she had favorites: an old artillery soldier who waited for her every day because she promised to bring him an audio player with military marches, and an elderly woman who could only sleep after Amara gently rubbed her shoulder. These small connections gave her strength. When she saw a patient smile, or when swelling in someone's legs went down after treatment, she felt her effort mattered. Each evening, after finishing her tasks, she walked through the quiet halls to make sure everyone was safe. She checked that all lights were dimmed, windows were closed, and patients were covered with blankets. Only after that did she leave for home. On her way out, she often thought about how unfair people could be. She did not understand why kindness was so often met with cruelty. Still, she chose not to change who she was. She wanted to keep her heart soft and her attitude gentle. Her only hope was to continue doing her job with dignity, even when others failed to treat her with the same respect. For her, that was the true measure of strength. It was a dry and windy day. Amara finished her shift at the nursing home and went to the parking lot to deliver supplies to a few elderly residents who lived nearby. She drove an old minivan that often stalled but still worked well enough for her errands. When she reached her car, she saw that two employees had parked their vehicles in a way that completely blocked her exit. They had left almost no space to move, just a narrow gap impossible for her to pass through. The men were laughing on the steps of the building, pointing in her direction, pretending not to notice her. Amara tried to back up and turn the wheel, but it was useless. The tires rubbed against the curb and she could hear the metal scrape slightly against the bumper of one of the cars. She stopped immediately, afraid they would accuse her of damaging it. The men laughed louder and made jokes about how she should lose some weight to fit through. Another worker, standing nearby, smirked and said she should take this as motivation to walk home. No one tried to help her. For several minutes she sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel tightly. The heat inside the car made her face burn. She could see their reflections in the side mirror, their mocking gestures, their exaggerated laughter. One of them even took out his phone, pretending to film her as she struggled to turn the car. Amara got out, trying to measure the distance again, hoping there might be another way to maneuver, but there was. The space had been blocked deliberately. Some of the nurses standing at the entrance turned away, pretending they didn't see what was happening. A few of them whispered and giggled. The security guard leaned on the wall, pretending to check his phone. The entire parking lot seemed frozen in silent approval of the cruelty. Amara could feel tears forming, but she refused to let them fall. She took deep breaths and tried to focus on the task ahead. In the back of her van were containers of hot meals for an elderly veteran who lived alone. The food was getting cold, and the thought of disappointing him hurt her more than the humiliation itself. She leaned against the van, trying to stay calm while the insults continued. Someone shouted that she could call a tow truck if she really wanted to fit through. Another voice said she should practice reversing without breaking a sweat. The laughter echoed across the lot, cutting through the dry air like sharp glass. The unfairness of it all felt unbearable. Amara worked harder than anyone there, often covering extra shifts when others refused. She cared for the residents when others were impatient or careless. Yet here she was, treated like a joke. She wanted to shout to defend herself, but she knew it would only give them more reason to mock her. Amara looked at the narrow space one more time, realizing she would have to wait until someone moved their car. She sat back inside the van and rested her hands on the steering wheel. Her heart was beating fast, her chest tight. She thought about all the small humiliations she had endured over the years, the jokes, the whispers, the looks. Each one left a mark, but she had always found a way to move on. This time it felt heavier. The cruelty was open, public, and no one had stepped forward to stop it. She stared through the windshield at the blue sky, wishing for the day to end, for the noise to fade, for something, anything, to remind her that not everyone in the world was like them. Nathan Whitmore was a millionaire businessman who had recently returned to Tulsa after spending many years abroad. He had lived and worked in cities like Singapore, Zurich, and London, building several successful companies in real estate and logistics. Despite his wealth and recognition, he preferred to keep a low profile and rarely appeared in public events. His visit this time was personal. He came to see his grandmother, a retired nurse who now lived in a local nursing home. She had served during the war and was one of the residents under Amara's care. The staff respected her, and Amara treated her with special attention, often staying longer to make sure she was comfortable. When Nathan's expensive black sedan entered the parking lot that afternoon, he immediately noticed something strange. Near the narrow exit, an old minivan stood blocked between two cars. A group of employees stood nearby, laughing and whispering. Inside the van sat Amara, trying to move but unable to pass through the narrow space. The men and women watching made cruel comments about her size and the car, enjoying her frustration. Nathan instantly understood what was happening. He stopped his car, got out, and walked quickly toward the scene. The laughter stopped as soon as the employees recognized him. Even those who didn't know who he was could tell by his confident walk, formal suit, and the luxury car behind him that he was someone important. He went straight to Amara's vehicle, opened the driver's door, and reached out his hand. His actions were calm and deliberate. In a steady, confident tone that carried across the lot, he spoke to her politely and respectfully, as if they were the only two people there. He called her dear, apologized for being late, and said that he owed her dinner and flowers. Then, in front of everyone, he gently lifted her hand and kissed it. Amara was too shocked to react. The parking lot fell completely silent. The same employees who had been laughing only seconds earlier now stood frozen, some embarrassed, others pale. Nathan helped her out of the van and guided her toward his luxury car. He opened the door for her, treating her with calm dignity while everyone else looked on in disbelief. The cruel jokes and laughter disappeared, replaced by a heavy, awkward quiet. When Amara was seated in his car, Nathan took out his phone and made a short call. His tone was polite but firm. Within minutes, a tow truck arrived and began removing the cars that had blocked the exit. The people responsible watched helplessly as their vehicles were taken away. By the time it was over, word had already spread inside the nursing home that an inspection was being launched, ordered by someone with influence and power. The same people who had mocked Amara earlier now avoided her eyes. They whispered nervously among themselves, afraid of the consequences. Amara sat quietly in Nathan's car, still trying to process what had just happened. She didn't feel revenge or anger, only relief. For the first time in a long while, someone had defended her openly, without hesitation or pity. As the car pulled away from the parking lot, the air felt different. Amara looked out the window, still holding her bag tightly. Nathan said nothing, but his calm presence filled the silence. She realized that this man, a millionaire who could have ignored everything, had instead stepped forward. For once, the world had chosen to stand beside her, not against her. Later that week, news spread across the city. The nursing home came under official review, several employees were suspended, and mandatory ethics training was introduced. People began talking not just about the millionaire's intervention, but about respect, dignity, and basic humanity. For Amara, it was the first time she felt that kindness and justice could exist in the same place, and that her quiet endurance had finally been seen. After the incident in the parking lot, Amara's life began to change. Inspections and disciplinary reviews continued at the nursing home, and management introduced new policies, but for her, the real change was something different. Nathan Whitmore, the millionaire who had defended her, started visiting more often. At first, he came for his grandmother and official matters. Later, his visits became more personal. He brought books for elderly residents who liked to read, donated boxes of blankets, and left gifts like sugar-free candy at the reception desk. He also stopped by during lunch breaks just to ask how things were going. Each time he saw her, he felt something grow inside him. He found himself watching her more closely, listening longer than necessary, and waiting for her smile. His visits were no longer just polite gestures. He realized he was drawn to her calmness and her ability to stay kind even after being treated unfairly. Her compassion, patience, and quiet dignity affected him deeply. Over the years, Nathan had become used to wealth and formalities, but Amara reminded him of something simple and real, the value of empathy. He began to see how much his life lacked it. Amara continued her work as before. She did not expect attention or reward. For her, caring for the residents was enough. She was surprised but grateful that Nathan kept returning. His kindness seemed sincere, and though she did not fully understand his motives, she began to look forward to his visits. When the nursing home announced an open day for families and guests, Nathan decided to attend. He wanted to support Amara and show appreciation for the work she and others did. He expected a friendly and respectful event. Instead, what he witnessed shocked him. Amara was helping arrange tables in the main hall. She wore her best dress, plain but neat. Some staff members were moving around serving drinks. Suddenly, one of them spilled a glass of tomato juice directly on her dress. The liquid spread across her front, leaving a large red stain. A few workers started laughing. Someone whispered that she should use a tablecloth instead since it was almost her size. Others giggled and tried to hide their amusement. Nathan froze where he stood. He could not believe what he saw. The same people who had been disciplined and warned after the parking lot incident were once again mocking her. They had learned nothing. The humiliation was open, cruel, and public. In that moment, something inside him broke. The anger, frustration, and admiration he had felt for her all merged into one strong emotion. He walked straight toward her. The room fell silent. Everyone stopped talking. Amara stood still, shocked, covered in stains, her hands trembling, her face pale. She looked completely defeated. Nathan stopped in front of her, realizing that his feelings had reached a point where he could not hide them anymore. Without saying anything, he knelt on one knee in front of her, right there in the middle of the room. The silence grew heavier as people stared. He asked her to marry him, speaking clearly enough for everyone to hear. The entire hall gasped. A few women exchanged angry looks, some whispered to each other, calling it madness. One dropped her glass on the floor, but Nathan did not care. He stayed calm, still kneeling, looking only at Amara. She was shaking, covered in tomato stains, tears forming in her eyes. He stood up, took her hand, and smiled. The people around them didn't know what to do. The laughter stopped completely. The whispers faded. No one expected a man like him, a millionaire, to propose to someone like her, especially in front of everyone. Yet, in that moment, it became clear that his decision was real. Amara's embarrassment slowly turned into disbelief, and then into something softer. She realized he wasn't pitying her. His eyes were full of warmth and certainty. Everyone watching saw something they didn't understand, a genuine connection that broke through their cruelty. What had begun as another public humiliation ended in silence. People looked away, ashamed or jealous. Nathan and Amara stood together in the middle of the room, both changed by the moment. For the first time, no one dared to laugh. The wedding of Nathan Whitmore and Amara became one of the most discussed events in Tulsa. People talked about it for weeks, surprised that something so unexpected could happen in their town. The ceremony took place in an old mansion that had been turned into an outdoor venue. Nathan paid for everything himself. The event was elegant but simple, planned with care to include everyone who mattered to Amara. Many of the guests were elderly residents from the nursing home where she had worked. They came in wheelchairs or with canes, dressed in their best clothes. Some veterans wore their medals, proud to be part of her day. The ceremony started in the afternoon. There was a small orchestra that played familiar songs from older generations. The tables were filled with food that Amara herself had chosen. She made sure the meals were prepared in a way that elderly guests could enjoy them, soft, lightly seasoned, and easy to chew. For her, it was important that no one felt out of place. The event was more about gratitude and kindness than luxury. When Amara walked down the aisle, the entire crowd fell silent. Her wedding dress was made simply but fit her perfectly. It didn't try to hide her figure. Instead, it showed her as she truly was, confident and peaceful. For those who had known her, it was a moment of recognition. She wasn't the person people had mocked before. She was a woman who had stood through humiliation and hardship and still remained kind. In the first rows sat the people whose lives she had touched. Some had once been bedridden patients, others lonely widows. They smiled through tears, watching the person who had once cared for them finally receive love and respect in return. The ceremony was quiet and sincere. There were no long speeches or formal rituals, only genuine moments. Instead of the usual wedding toasts, people shared short stories about what Amara had done for them, how she had helped them recover, how she had stayed with them at night when no one else would, how she had treated them with dignity when others didn't. Nathan stayed close to her the entire time, his calm presence showing that this was not charity or impulse. His expression made it clear that his decision was final and full of respect. The people who once mocked her found it difficult to speak. Even those who had come out of curiosity or gossip fell silent as they watched the ceremony. For the first time, their laughter didn't fit the moment. When the orchestra played its final song, the guests stood up slowly, some holding hands, some crying quietly. They weren't just witnessing a wedding. They were witnessing a change in how they saw another person. The event forced them to face the truth, that the woman they once treated as an object of ridicule was someone of immense strength and kindness. After the ceremony, photos from the wedding spread across the community. They appeared on bulletin boards in the nursing home, in local newspapers, and even online. Residents who couldn't attend kept pictures by their beds. For many, it became a symbol that good people could still be recognized, even if late in life. Amara didn't focus on the celebration itself. She didn't care about the decorations, the music, or the food. What mattered to her was that the people around her saw that kindness was not weakness. She finally felt that her years of quiet work and endurance had meaning. For the first time, the same city that had once laughed at her paused and showed respect. That evening, as the sun set and the last guests left, she understood something simple. Her victory wasn't in the expensive venue or the beautiful dress. It was in the fact that, for one day, people in her town stopped pretending and saw what truly mattered. They saw her heart, and through it, they saw a part of themselves. After the wedding, Amara left her old job. Together with her husband Nathan, she opened the Center for Dignified Aging and Veteran Rehabilitation. It was a large, quiet building made for comfort and safety. The hallways were wide, there were ramps instead of stairs, and the rooms were bright and calm. Elderly residents could choose their own music and daily routine. Everything in the center was designed to make people feel respected and cared for. The money for the center came from Nathan's foundation, state grants, and donations from people Amara had helped in the past. The staff was trained to treat residents kindly and to notice problems early. Respect and patience were part of their job, not something extra. When news spread that salaries at the new center were high, many of Amara's former coworkers started showing up. They brought resumes and tried to sound friendly. Some came alone, others in groups. They talked about how much they had changed and how they wanted to work in a better place. In truth, most of them only wanted the higher pay and easier schedule. They didn't care about the values that Amara had built the center on. Amara met them politely but didn't hire them. She remembered their laughter, their cruel jokes, and the way they had treated weak and sick people. She knew how much pain they had caused with their words and indifference. She could not risk letting them near people who were old, sick, and vulnerable. She said clearly that no amount of experience or polite words could erase cruelty. She told them they could join the free training programs to learn proper care, but until they truly changed, there would be no job for them. Amara believed that no money could turn a harsh person into a kind one. Real kindness came only through work and self-awareness. The center's rule became simple. No one who mocked or disrespected others in the past would be allowed to do it again under her roof. Over time, the city accepted the new center as an example of how things should be. The entrance was always clear, and the guard knew every visitor by name. Inside, the walls showed photos of veterans and graduates of the training program, people who had learned to care without judgment. Amara often walked through the halls, greeting residents and checking that everything was calm. The elderly people smiled when they saw her. They felt safe because they knew no one would insult or neglect them. Amara finally felt peace. She had built not just a workplace but a place where no cruelty was allowed, where weakness was treated with care, not with laughter. I hope you enjoyed this story. Share your thoughts in the comments, what you liked, what you didn't, and what stood out. Until tomorrow, I have many more interesting stories for you. Thank you for your likes and subscriptions. It inspires me to share more stories of ordinary people who have had extraordinary experiences.